You look at your bank balance and feel that tightness in the chest. You close the banking app fast, like you saw something forbidden. This is the behavior I see over and over in people who have a pathological fear of money. They wonder why their financial life is always a mess. Today I will open their minds completely. I will show how the universe simply answers the pattern they keep repeating. I will show how to begin reprogramming the link between mind and money so you can finally get out of misery. Do you recognize yourself in the group that fears money and yet stays trapped in shortage? I start where I always start, with the image that proves the point. You, the phone, the screen. You glance at the balance and your body reacts before your mind processes the numbers. Your breath shortens. A loop of stories begins. I shouldn't have looked. This will trigger me. I knew it. That small ritual look, panic, shut down is where the pattern lives. It is the front door to an entire inner economy built on fear. If you want to understand this mind, you must first accept how it hides behind narratives. They tell themselves grand sentences to feel morally superior. They tell others they are too spiritual to worry about money. They call the system corrupt or say the economy is unfair. Those lines are protective. They defend the truth that is harder to say. I am terrified of having money. I have watched people say they want abundance while avoiding the one thing that signals abundance, a bank balance they can face calmly. They declare they want freedom, but every action pulls them towards safety that looks like scarcity. They cover the fear with ideas. They wrap it in virtue. That is the first layer. Now let me peel it back. They present a public face. They use labels to justify their inaction. I don't care about money becomes a virtue badge. Money is not spiritual, is repeated until the conscience relaxes. They mention values, and those values often work as an exemption to adult responsibility. I have sat in living rooms where someone announces they will not take a well-paid promotion because it doesn't feel aligned, and the sentence ends the discussion. The room applauds. The work of responsibility stops. The story has served its purpose, to avoid the discomfort of dealing with money. Behind that public script sits a quieter monologue. When alone, they say things like, "If I had more, I'd be in trouble," or "I must not want too much." The private story is punitive. It says money corrupts. It says receiving is dangerous. This private narrative runs silently. It shapes every small choice. It pushes them away from clarity. It convinces them that scarcity is safer than unknown abundance. I mapped this group in tiers of rationalization. The first tier is the badge of spiritual superiority. They claim they are beyond material concerns. It sounds noble. Underneath, avoidance operates. They will skip bank meetings. They will cancel a call with an accountant. They will not price their services properly because to ask for money would be materialistic. They confuse humility with neglect. Humility has boundaries. Avoidance has excuses. You can see the difference if you watch their calendar for a month. Meetings about income or taxes. Mostly no-shows. Opportunities to raise fees. Deferred. Invitations to monetize a talent. Frightened silence. The contradiction is violent. They say they want abundance. Their schedule says they do not. The second tier is grievance as justification. They believe the world is rigged. They know someone cheated them once. They grew up hearing phrases like, "We never had enough," or "money causes fights." So they adopt a victim script. The script is persuasive. Injustice explains their low balance, and it absolves them of change. If the system is unfair, why bother? They ask. The question is a trap. It moves the struggle outside. It makes them opponents of an external enemy. Yet the energy consumed in righteous anger rarely becomes the energy of creation. The universe they imagine is adversarial. They train themselves to scan reality for proof of being wronged. Each small success is explained away as fluke or luck. Each failure is proof of the system's cruelty. This pattern feeds inertia. A third layer is compulsive saving turned sick. This person says, "I save everything," like a prideful mantra. On paper it looks responsible. But on the inside, there is a terror of spending that becomes a prison. They do not invest, they hoard. They do not allow the money to circulate. They keep it so cold that it withers. Their life contracts into carefulness. Social invitations are declined. Their home is functional, never joyful. They deny themselves repairs, opportunities to train, chances to grow. The mind behind this says, if I keep enough, I will be safe. But safety frozen as scarcity is still suffering. It is not freedom. The irony is brutal. Their bank can hold more than they use, but their life does not expand. They secretly despise those who take measured risks and prosper. Their inner judge calls it waste. Their outer life pays the cost. Then there is the sabotage pattern. This is the person who finally receives a freelance payout, an inheritance, a project that sells. For a brief stretch, the world seems to have changed. Then something almost ritualistic occurs. A loan to a friend who cannot repay, a purchase to feel normal, an investment made without thought. It is as if money becomes hot and must be disposed of. They tell themselves, I don't want to be attached. Or they say, I will not let money define me. Those words become a license to self-harm. I have seen people sign contracts that ruin them because the inner script refuses stability. The belief at work is simple and cruel. I don't deserve to keep abundance. The mind honors its old verdict by making real choices that restore the old reality. The universe obeys the pattern because that is how the mind communicates. All these layers are united by one core contradiction. They speak of wanting prosperity, but act as if it must be avoided. They call it detachment, spirituality, or moral purity. But the behavior is fear. That fear shows up in predictable ways. They avoid the bank balance. They postpone decisions. They justify inaction with stories. They become experts at moral camouflage. In my experience, camouflage is the deadliest thing in the inner world. It creates illusions of virtue. It masks the need for real work. And avoidance, repeated, becomes identity. I want to describe this group in the detail of scenes so you can see the mechanics. Picture one woman I know. She is warm. She teaches a practice that helps others. Her website is beautiful. Her mailing list has 8,000 people. She offers paid courses. Yet each launch is half-hearted. She believes money corrupts purpose, so she prices low. When someone offers her a retreat partnership with a promoter who pays well, she hesitates and says, it doesn't feel right. Months later, she complains that she must work 3 jobs to make rent. She tells her friends she is aligning with values. The alignment is selective. It protects her from confronting a deeper fear, that prosperity would expose her to being judged. The fear is rooted in an old story. When my family had money, something bad happened. That story became a rule. She obeys it. The result is chronic under-earning and the constant anxiety she pretends to transcend. Do you see the cruelty inside that pattern? It is self-inflicted, but dressed as noble. Now picture a man who grew up in a home where arguments about bills defined dinner conversations. He learned to equate money with conflict. Later in life, he seeks jobs that keep him just above survival. He avoids promotions that mean more visibility. When a good opportunity appears, he sabotages it by missing deadlines or failing to ask for the raise. He says, I am not ready. His inner voice says, money brings pain. The memory of chaos becomes the frame through which he reads every door. Every potential gain becomes suspect. He tests the world by recreating the old pain until it proves the rule. The universe, as I describe it, responds with consistency. It gives him scenarios that match his inner forecast. This is not magic. It is coherence. What you broadcast internally, you will begin to experience externally. The pattern shows up in relationships too. A couple I worked with wanted to buy a home. One partner had a steady career and was comfortable. The other partner, raised to distrust wealth, would sabotage the process by insisting on delaying inspections or by insisting on cheaper but riskier options. They would turn a pragmatic decision into an emotional battlefield. The result was constant so the work must be twofold, practical and internal. You must change habits and you must change the story. One without the other creates partial fixes. Practical changes without story shift lead to relapse. Story change without practical action becomes an emotional fantasy. The two must run together. Before I go deeper, I must be blunt. This group often prefers blame to responsibility. There is comfort in blaming the system. It absolves the self. I do not deny the system's flaws. I only insist that blaming remains an easy way out. If your inner narrative insists that the world is against you, you will create evidence for it by not engaging. The universe, in the sense I use the word, is simply the relationship between your inner environment and what you attract. If your inner environment scans for threat, the outer world provides confirmations. This is not mystical. It is ecological. It is how attention shapes reality. So what does a day in the life of one of these people look like? Simple scenes reveal the mechanics. They skip tax appointments. They avoid talking numbers with partners. They undercharge for services. They accept late payments without comment. Each small concession is a vote for scarcity. Each avoidance strengthens the pattern. Over time, the votes add up. The life you live is the sum of small choices. The mind that fears money makes small choices that reaffirm fear. That is the tragedy and the opportunity. It is tragic because the person is rarely aware of the accumulation. It is an opportunity because the steps to change are small and practical. If you recognize this pattern in yourself, do not make the fatal mistake of thinking it is only about money. It is about identity. Do not hide behind spiritual cliches. Do not use values to preserve avoidance. You must face the ledger and your history. You must see the stories that govern you. That is the only honest path forward. I want to pause here and thank those who have sat through this examination. This channel is new. If you found this useful, subscribing helps us reach 1,000 subscribers. Tell me where you are watching from, city and country, in the comments. Your voice matters. Now, if you are listening closely, you may be asking, are there types inside this group? Which pattern am I? The answer is yes. In the next section, I will map the subtypes in detail. I will show how each one behaves across a day, what beliefs run the show, and what living inside that subtype costs. If you think you are a hybrid of two, that is normal. Stay with me, because understanding those subtypes is how you begin to choose differently. There are 4 internal castes inside this fear. I name them plain and sharp because euphemisms hide the pattern. The names are not insults. They are maps. First, the spiritual confused. Second, the financially traumatized. Third, the compulsive hoarder. Fourth, the unconscious saboteur. Each has its own grammar of thought and behavior. Each requires its own wake-up call. The spiritual confused uses spiritual language as a shield. They will repeat phrases like, money is energy, or the universe will provide, with conviction. The sentence sounds progressive. It masks an action. I have listened while they refuse to price their services properly. They will say, I'll trust the universe, and then not follow up on paid inquiries. Their pattern is a curious mix of belief and passivity. The belief is real. The passivity is a habit. The deeper script is, if I chase money, I will betray my spiritual truth. The inner mind rewires chasing into moral failure. So every attempt to monetize is interpreted as a moral test. If they do well, guilt follows. They may sabotage their own success to preserve the self-image of not materialistic. Their days look like this. Good idea for a product at 9 a.m. Creative energy, then avoidance by noon, and by evening a solemn prayer that the right opportunity appears. Their fear disguises itself as surrender. The consequence is a life under-earning despite abundant gifts. Their relationships with money are inconclusive. They feel morally pure and practically impoverished. The remedy starts with a truth this type resists. Money is neutral. It is a tool. The spiritual life can coexist with competence. Saying that aloud is often their first real rebellion against the story that has kept them small. The financially traumatized carries incidents as doctrine. This person experienced a sharp financial wound. Maybe a bankruptcy in the family, maybe watching a parent humiliated by debt. The wound organizes their life like an axle. They interpret risk as danger. A promotion means instability in their internal map. I have talked to people who turned down 40% more income because it felt unsafe. Their body remembers the old panic and speaks before the logical brain can weigh outcomes. Their day shows patterns of low ambition disguised as prudence. They keep jobs where they are undervalued. They avoid investments that could grow their wealth. Their belief structure says, rich people are different in dangerous ways. Or, if I have too much, I will lose what matters. The logic is consistent with their past. The challenge is that the past is no longer the present. Their neural map can be updated, but it needs patience. Practical steps like incremental exposure to manageable financial risk, combined with narrative work about safety, slowly shift the map. The work is therapeutic and strategic. It means small wins, repeated, until the body calibrates to a new baseline. The compulsive hoarder believes scarcity will arrive without notice. Their nervous system is tuned to store. They keep linens, receipts, cash under mattresses, safety boxes. Their pride in saving is real. They can save large sums and still feel poor. Their internal sentence is, money will disappear if I'm not guarding it. The paradox is this. The more they freeze money, the less it circulates and grows. Money requires motion to generate abundance. Hoarding freezes motion. The life consequences are muted joy, missed investments, fear-driven relationships. Hoarders often sacrifice health, experiences, and relationships to keep the ledger intact. They can be materially secure, yet emotionally impoverished. To change, they must be persuaded that prudence and growth are different. They need a staged plan to let money breathe. They need to test trust in small ways. Do I let myself pay for a class and see the result? Do I invest a small portion and observe growth? The ritual of letting go must be incremental. Each test builds trust in a future that is not based on panic. The unconscious saboteur looks like a lottery. They either have nothing or briefly a lot. They make money then vanish it. Their inner line reads, I cannot be rich for long. They generate scenarios that prove it. For example, they suddenly fund a friend's risky venture. They choose emotionally satisfying purchases, or they enter deals without vetting. There is often a deep feeling of unworthiness. The money arrives and quickly collides with that unworthiness, triggering actions that erase it. Emergence of riches becomes a moral threat. The saboteur's day is dramatic. They secure a contract and then forget to issue an invoice. They receive an unexpected check and then lavish it on someone else as proof they are not greedy. The pattern persists because it satisfies an inner archetype. To remain small is to avoid scrutiny and responsibility. The remedy is accountability and boundary training. The saboteur must practice saying no and keeping records. They must rehearse the narrative. I am capable of holding abundance. It sounds small. It is not. After I map those subtypes, I always return to what unites them. They are different faces of the same engine, a mind that equates money with threat. That engine runs through a predictable loop. The content changes, but the structure does not. Once you see the structure, you can design interventions that cut across types. For the spiritual confused, the intervention begins with naming the avoidance and making pricing an ethical practice. For the traumatized, the work starts with graded exposure to financial responsibility. For the hoarder, the practice is staged release. For the saboteur, the practice is accountability and boundary setting. The exact exercises differ, but the principle is identical. Replace fear-driven patterns with repeatable, conscious actions. I want to show you two brief stories that illuminate transformation. The first is of a woman I call Mara. She began as a spiritual confused practitioner. Her seminars were full of depth. Her bank balance never reflected her value. She used to say, "I don't want to commodify love." But he learned something. The world did not collapse. He then negotiated a small freelance project at a higher pay. The result was modest but essential. His body experienced competence where once there had been panic. Months later, he accepted a promotion he once would have rejected. The promotion carried responsibility and more money. Joao's inner map shifted by the accumulation of small victories. He did the ugly work of confronting old ghosts. He did not need to declare, "I trust the universe." He needed to make small, real contracts with reality and keep them. Those two cases show the pattern. The work is not heroic. It is incremental. It is repeatedly choosing clarity over avoidance. The interventions are practical and psychological at the same time. That is the core truth I keep returning to. I must be clear about what does not help. Idealistic slogans will not outgun decades of habit. Think positive is a bandage. You must do the messy work of accounting for your life. You must face the ledger. That is why my approach is never purely metaphysical. It always pairs internal questioning with a concrete action. For the spiritual confused, clarity on price and offer structure. For the traumatized, a graded risk plan. For the hoarder, small acts of expenditure that generate joy. For the saboteur, formal accountability. Those steps are technical and they require discipline. They are also humane. They do not ask for perfection. They ask for a new conversation with money. If you recognize yourself, know this: the subtype you fit is not destiny. It is a tendency. Tendencies can be changed. You are not condemned to be the person who always freezes or the person who always burns. The first move is recognition. The second move is naming. The third move is a tiny action that contradicts your old story. For the person who never opens a bank app, the tiny action is opening it and staying for 30 seconds. For the person who prices too low, the tiny action is raising one price by a small, defensible margin and watching the world respond. For the hoarder, the action is spending money to experience a small pleasure. For the saboteur, the action is writing an invoice and following up. The universe, in the sense I use the word, responds to the signal of congruence. If you broadcast responsibility, reality will reflect possibilities that match that broadcast. Before I close this chapter, let me return to compassion and bluntness. I am compassionate because I have seen the fear up close. I am blunt because accommodation never helped any of them. The truth is a medicine. It can hurt, but it can also free. If you want to stay small, keep the old stories and the world will obey. If you want to shift, choose one small, visible act today that contradicts the story you tell yourself. Say it out loud if you need to. I can hold money with integrity. Repeat it until the sentence softens the body's reaction. Now, in the next section, I will show you the hidden law that ties all these subtypes together. I will name it plainly and show the mechanics. Understanding that law is the next essential step. If you stay, you will see how your internal script becomes a steady broadcast that the world answers. If you leave now, at least do one thing. Pick the sentence you heard a moment ago and repeat it once more. Say to yourself, "I can hold money with integrity." Then come back, because the law behind that sentence is what decides whether you stay small or begin to grow. I call it plainly the law of mental financial alignment. It is not mystical jargon. It is a description of what happens when a mind habitually treats money as threat. I name the law because naming a pattern takes away its magic. Once named, it can be seen, tested, and changed. The law has a structure. A perception triggers a meaning. That meaning creates an emotion. The emotion drives behavior. Behavior sends a steady signal into the world. The world answers in ways consistent with that signal. It is a loop, mechanical and relentless. It looks like fate. It is not fate. It is feedback. Watch it in a room. Someone opens their banking app. Their chest tightens. They think a short sentence, "This will be a problem," and immediately feel the old pulse of panic. The pulse narrows their view. They choose avoidance. They cancel the call with their accountant. They postpone deciding on a proposal. The non-action is the message. It is repeated day after day. The world responds. Bills pile, opportunities fade, invitations are not followed up. The outer scene mirrors the inner pattern with cruel fidelity. The mind loves a story that makes it exempt. The system is unfair, they say. I would act differently if the world were different. That story relocates responsibility and comforts the conscience. The law does not care about comfort. The law responds to the signal you actually broadcast. Saying, I want abundance, while sending 1,000 micro signals of fear is like declaring, I want summer, while freezing your house every evening. The climate you create matters more than your slogans. This law has a vocabulary you can learn to listen for. Thought precedes emotion. Emotions are brief, but they are the engine of choice. Fear narrows. Guilt shrinks. Shame withdraws. Each of those emotional states maps to a set of behaviors that are predictable. Fear produces avoidance. Guilt produces overcorrection or hiding. Shame produces secrecy and sabotage. Those behaviors then create situations that look exactly like the inner forecast. The person inside the forecast then uses those situations as proof that their original thought was correct. It is tidy, vicious, and hard to see from the inside. I want to be precise about the universe in this frame. I do not mean a moral judge. I mean an ecology of attention and consequence. The universe is the totality of interactions that respond to the signal you give. If you habitually broadcast, I will lose money, your environment will produce more opportunities to lose money or to avoid keeping it. If you habitually broadcast, I can handle abundance, your environment will unfold chances to hold and grow it. That is not mystical, it is systemic. It is the same principle as training a muscle. The body adapts to the input you give. So does the social and material world you inhabit. The law explains paradoxes that otherwise look like contradictions. Why does the practitioner with a popular course underprice themselves and then complain about not earning? Why does the person who saved obsessively never feel safe? Why does someone who inherits money lose it in a year? The law says, the external is consistent with the internal. The symptoms are not random. They are signals. I am precise because people confuse correlation with moral failure. You are not lazy if you avoid billing your clients. You are frightened. You are not immoral if you hoard cash and never spend it. You are protecting a wound. That distinction matters because the path out is different for a commandment and for a wound. A commandment invites judgment. A wound invites care and gradual retraining. To show the law at work, watch Mara again. She used spiritual language to justify an action. Behind her phrase, I trust the universe, there was a muscle of avoidance. She did not manage her pricing because each money conversation felt like betrayal. Her inner map said, if I earn well, I will be judged. So she set low prices, and then the market sent her buyers who confirmed her low price. The law answered her message. She believed she was spiritual. The world taught her she was poor. What changed was not a cosmic miracle. She shifted the signal. She began to set one price higher and to call it a test, not a betrayal. She rehearsed dialogues about worth. The nervous system, exposed to the new pattern repeatedly, relearned safety. The law of alignment responded. Now watch Joao. His early years were noise. Arguments at the table, unpaid bills shoved into drawers. His nervous system learned to equate survival with caution. When an opportunity for promotion appeared, his body remembered the old dread and sent a tiny signal. I am not ready. He sabotaged the moment by missing a deadline. The employer moved on. The loss felt like proof that danger attends more money. Again, the law did what it always does. It matched his internal posture with external evidence. Joao's work was to recondition his response to visibility and reward. He practiced asking for a modest raise. He learned the quiet, boring fact that the world did not immediately punish him for asking. The new signal attracted different responses. The law did the rest. There are specific rules inside this law worth memorizing. The first rule, The signal you send does not have to be conscious. Micro behaviors count. Not opening your bank app counts. Not if your inner life says, I don't deserve this, and your outer life acts to remove chances, the universe will dutifully match that coherence. It is not punishment. It is functional alignment. It obeys patterns, not morals. So how do you test the law on yourself? Start small. Send a clear, repeatable signal for a limited time and watch the response. Issue one invoice promptly. Price one service a little higher. Open your balance and sit with it for 30 seconds without judgment. These tiny behaviors are experiments. The law will treat them as data. It will respond. You will receive evidence that reframes your internal model. If the evidence agrees with your new signal, the nervous system loosens. If it doesn't, you'll learn to adjust. The work is iterative. Understanding the law is the hinge. Once you see this, you stop mystifying your life. You stop waiting for cosmic corrections. You start conducting the orchestra. But seeing the law is not the same as changing the song. In the next part 1, we'll show the loop this law creates in your daily life, the automatic cycle that keeps people trapped. I will name each step and show how quickly it repeats. If you think this is theoretical, wait until you watch it in motion. The loop runs on a simple rotation. Thought, feeling, action, result. I call it the cycle of auto-sabotage. It is small and precise. It spins until something larger breaks it. Think of a promotion. Your mind lights on the offer and whispers an old story. If I get this, there will be pressure. Immediately, a mood arrives. Anxiety tightens the breath. The body is primed to protect. The protection looks like avoidance. You miss the meeting. You say, I need more time. The opportunity slips. The result is scarcity. Scarcity then proves the original belief. The loop closes. It is elegant cruelty. I will show this cycle in 3 scenes so you can feel its shape. Scene 1, a freelance launch. You have an email list of 8,000 people. The product is valuable. But you tell yourself, I do not want to be seen as selling out. On launch day, your fingers stall. You never speak price clearly. People who would have paid hesitate. Sales are weak. You rationalize. They are in a slump. Behind the rationalization is an emotional firewall. The old script protected identity at the cost of revenue. That choice becomes data. It teaches the brain that scarcity preserves the self. The cycle keeps turning. Scene 2, a windfall arrives. Maybe an unexpected contract, a small inheritance, or a sudden sale. The immediate thought is a whisper of dread. This will not last. Panic activates. The mind seeks immediate relief from the dissonance of abundance. The relief strategy varies. For some it is reckless generosity. For others it is a secret purchase intended to prove they are still not corrupted. For others it is lending money to someone who needs it more. The money leaks. The body relaxes briefly and the old worldview is restored. Again, the result proves the premise. Money disappears. The loop has done its work. Scene 3, chronic hoarding. A person saves obsessively. On paper they look prudent. In life they are impoverished of experience. The small avoidance of spending becomes a daily ritual. They skip necessary repairs. They refuse to invest in training. Social invitations are declined. The mind says, if I hold enough, I will be safe. The world answers by withholding growth. Wealth that stagnates stops creating opportunities. Safety frozen as scarcity becomes suffering. The cycle completes itself by confirming the terror that started it. Each of these scenes shares the same architecture. A belief that frames the meaning of events, an emotion that propels a protective behavior, and a practical choice that leads to a predictable outcome. That predictability is what we call proof. And proof is what cements habit. I want to be honest about one thing. The cycle does not always look foolish from the outside. It often looks noble. I will not commodify this can be brave. I need to be thrifty can be prudent. I refuse to be corrupted by wealth can be morally coherent. The danger is that these narratives serve avoidance. They feel morally elevated while doing the work of retreat. The mind rewards itself with righteousness, and the universe mirrors the retreat with scarcity. That is how the cycle sustains dignity and deprivation at once. There is an emotional economy inside this loop. Every time you choose avoidance, you purchase a short-term emotional commodity, relief from anxiety. That relief is addictive. It becomes the cheapest currency available. You trade potential prosperity for immediate calm. Over time, those trades compound into a life that looks like the currency you accumulated. Small moments of calm and a persistent low-grade misery. Now watch how the cycle ratchets. Each iteration narrows options. The person who habitually avoids money conversations loses practice in negotiation. Their confidence shrinks. Without practice, attempts at financial competence are clumsy, and setbacks are read as further evidence of incompetence. The loop accelerates. What began as a protective reflex becomes an identity. They become the kind of person who cannot hold money. The loop's self-reinforcing property is the cruel genius of the pattern. Let me give you two concrete stories of return and relapse so you sense the subtlety. Mara, again. After she raised one price and ran her weekend course, she felt something unfamiliar, competence. But competence frightened her. It asked for new habits, bookkeeping, contracts, boundaries. She would do them for a week, then avoid the ledger for a month. A late payment would arrive and then trigger shame. Shame did what it always does. It hid the invoices. Invoices forgotten became a narrative of failure. The loop dragged her back. Her recovery came when she handed a small part of her financial administration to someone else and kept one simple ritual, one price check on Monday. That tiny anchoring behavior destabilized the loop because it translated psychological change into a mechanical habit. The cycle was interrupted not by revelation, but by repetition of a new signal. Joao's example shows the slow animal of the loop. He asked for a 10% raise and rehearsed the conversation. The first attempt failed. He could have read this as proof that his fear was correct. Instead, he read it as data. He rehearsed again, took a freelance job that required him to invoice, and then chased the invoice when it was late. Each small accountability action created friction with his old narrative. The loop weakened. It did not stop overnight, but it grew brittle enough for a promotion to appear months later. When it did, his body did not automatically flee. Why? Because the new signaling had already shifted the ecology around him. This is the mechanic you must understand. The cycle is weakened by predictable, small acts that contradict the interior script. It is not grand gestures. It is daily, visible, boring acts. The person who fears money must become proficient at the low-level labor of money. Invoicing, pricing, reading the balance, saying no to a request. These acts are concrete emissions the law responds to. They change the signal. They alter the feedback. There is also a social component. The loop uses relationships to confirm itself. Think of the partner who keeps resisting a home purchase. Their resistance can turn practical steps into battles. They will find ways to delay inspections or insist on precarious fixes. The other partner grows tired. Offers are withdrawn. The couple misses a home. The resisting partner interprets the loss as confirmation. If we had committed, something bad would have happened. The cycle uses friends, lovers, and colleagues as co-authors of its proof. That is why financial patterns rarely change in isolation. They require renegotiation of the interpersonal code. You must see the real danger here. Left unaltered, the cycle practices a slow erasure of possibility. It narrows relationships. It reduces options. It corrodes trust in yourself. It rewrites identity into a smaller font. The end of the loop is not dramatic by necessity. It is weary. It is the quiet life of deferred dreams. If you are watching this and thinking, that is me, do not self-flagellate. You are not the only person who learned practical avoidance as survival. What you must avoid now is the consolation of blaming the system. Blame keeps the loop tidy. Your task is not to shame the past. Your task is to see the steps, and choose one that contradicts them. What comes next is essential. Seeing the cycle will make you angry or ashamed, maybe both. That is fine. But 1 month a critical payment is late. The landlord knocks. The humiliation of asking to delay is intense. Pride and fear collide. The person walks out feeling exposed. This exposure is a sharp mirror. It forces a question the loop kept muffled. Do I want to keep living like this? The question is the hinge. For another person, the breaking point is sudden and spectacular. An unexpected legal bill arrives. The person who habitually loans money to friends finds themselves with creditors at the door. They have no buffer because their pattern was to disperse money as a safety test. The crisis exposes both their generosity and their lack of boundaries. The consequence is both financial and relational. Friendships strain, trust dissolves, and the person is left with a loneliness that feels like punishment. Sometimes the breaking point is less public and more corrosive. The person who hoards finds that their life is full of no's. They cannot repair the leaky roof. They cannot travel to see a dying parent. They cannot invest in learning. The cost is not a bill, but a life truncated. After years, the person sits with accumulated savings and a deep, private regret. That regret can be as painful as debt. At the breaking point, two roads appear. Most people will take the path of explanation. They will blame an external enemy, the economy, the boss, the market. Blame offers moral relief. It protects identity. It keeps the loop intact because it refuses to examine the internal signal that created the reality. The other road is accountability. Accountability is ugly. It begins with admitting that your pattern produced the outcome. That admission threatens identity. It also opens repair. The first effect of accountability is grief. You must grieve the choices that made sense in the old frame. That grief is not failure. It is a cleansing. It removes the narrative armor that protected avoidance. When someone I work with reaches this state and chooses accountability, I notice their language change. They stop saying they did this to me. They start saying, I did this. The difference is not semantic. It alters the field of action. If you take responsibility, you can design responses. If you stay in blame, you remain reactive. What does repair look like immediately after the collapse? Practical triage first. Call the creditors. Open the ledger. Get a clear picture. Shame wants to hide these details. Do the opposite. Make them public in a small, controlled way. Tell a trusted person. Dependency is not weakness when it is part of a plan. The practical steps are simple. Budget, renegotiate, prioritize essentials. They are boring. They are effective. They create oxygen where panic had been suffocating judgment. But the inner work matters equally. The collapse is an opportunity to rewrite the script that animated the loop. You must interrogate the first belief that began the dance. Ask, what early memory taught me to fear money? Whose voice trained my nervous system? You will find answers in family scenes, humiliations, or even respected warnings that calcified into doctrine. Name them. Naming reduces their power. I want to return to Joao and Mara because their breaking points teach useful patterns. Joao's turning point was the week he missed mortgage payments. It was not dramatic to anyone else. For him, it was a moral and bodily alarm. He could have doubled down on shame. Instead, he did two things. He told his partner, and he set one daily task: chase unpaid invoices for 15 minutes. That tiny ritual rebuilt competence. Months later, when another opportunity presented, his body no longer leapt to sabotage because the new routine had changed his baseline. Mara's moment was more subtle. A partner she had supported financially for years left the relationship. She had given money as proof of love. The departure left both a financial hole and a confrontation with the way she used money to avoid vulnerability. The loss stung, but it showed her the function of her giving. She began by establishing one boundary: no more loans to partners without contracts. That mechanical change taught her nervous system that she could say no without moral collapse. The loop loosened. You should notice a pattern in these recoveries. Both started with a public act of responsibility and a tiny daily habit. They did not attempt a moral overhaul. They set micro conditions that forced new feedback. That is crucial. The collapsing moment demands both practical triage and a program of tiny, consistent behavior changes. The program must be boring enough to repeat and visible enough to produce new evidence. Do not romanticize the collapse as necessary. It is not. But do not pretend you can skip the discomfort that accompanies honest change. Realignment asks for humility. It asks for consistent, repeatable signals that contradict the old script. There is another aspect to the breaking point that I must stress. It will expose who in your life is aligned with your new direction and who is not. Some relationships will not survive the change. That is not failure. Patterns live in networks. When you shift your signal, some nodes in the network will reject the new frequency. Expect resistance. Prepare for it. That is part of the cost. Now, what happens if you refuse the fork? If you fold into blame, the loop resumes. The next cycle will be quicker because the nervous system has rehearsed this pattern. Regret deepens. Opportunities narrow further. The final state is not always catastrophic in a headline sense, but it is catastrophic for life quality. The person reaches an older age with more things and less possibility. That is a sobering end. If you have arrived at your breaking point, here are the immediate priorities. Stop hiding. Inventory what you can control. Take one visible step that contradicts your old identity and repeat it daily. The visible step can be as small as issuing one invoice and following it. Repeat that for 30 days. The world will respond. Your body will register the repetition and slowly revise expectation. We are at a hinge. Many will turn back. Many will stay in familiar comfort. Some will choose the harder route of responsibility. That route begins with practices I will lay out next. It begins with a new pattern, neutral financial responsibility. If you are ready to step into that practice, the next chapter will give you the first ritual and the rules of rehearsal. It will not be comfortable. It will be the only reliable method to stop the pattern from producing another collapse. If you stay with me, I will show you how to replace the fearful broadcast with a stable and honest signal. I will give you the exact micro habits that disrupt the loop and invite the universe to respond differently. The choice is simple to name and hard to enact. Which will you take? I will not pretend this is gentle work. Reprogramming the mind that fears money is surgical. It asks you to cut away habits you have mistaken for virtue. It asks for rituals so small they feel ridiculous. Those rituals are the only honest currency in this repair. The name I give the new posture is neutral financial responsibility. Neutral because money is not moral. Responsibility because you must answer for what you send into the world. Say it aloud. Believe it a little. Repeat it until it stops sounding like hope and begins to sound like practice. This phrase reverses the broadcast you have been sending. It replaces trembling with clarity. It does not make the world kinder. It simply makes your signal readable. You must learn to translate abstract resolve into mechanical, repeatable acts. That is where the loop breaks. Thought without visible action is theater. It comforts you without changing outcomes. The practice I give you is simple and specific. It fits into 5 minutes. It is boring by design. Boring wins where rhetoric fails. The ritual is the confrontation of financial clarity. Do it before your phone scrolls, before the day invites excuses. Sit with a paper notebook and a pen. Not an app, not a spreadsheet. A hand and a page. For 5 minutes answer 3 questions in writing. What fearful thought about money did I have yesterday? What concrete act did I avoid because of that thought? What one tiny task will contradict that thought today? Write the answers in 3 lines. Then write an affirmation that bites back at your deepest money fear. For many, it will be some version of, I can receive and steward money with integrity. Say the sentence out loud 3 times. Close the notebook. Naming the exact thought matters. I can't demand money is different from money corrupts me. One is negotiation, the other is identity. When you identify the thought, you can prescribe the act. That prescription must be visible and measurable. I will email one client about an outstanding invoice is better than I'll be better at my finances. The ritual trains the muscle of translation. They are small and mechanical, so your nervous system can obey without moral debate. I give you a starter set I call the rules of rehearsal. Rule 1, one visible action per day. No debate. Rule 2, one public accountability per week. Rule 3, one transactional boundary per month. A transactional boundary is something concrete, a refusal, a price, a non-negotiable term. Rule 4, measure, but not obsessively. At the end of each week, write one sentence about what changed. The rules of rehearsal are not rigid absolutes. They are scaffolding. They exist to relocate your habit of avoidance into the territory of repetition. Repetition rewires expectation. Your body learns to expect competence. That is the point. Let me be specific about the daily action. It should take between 5 and 20 minutes. Examples that actually work. Send one invoice and set a payment date. Read your current bank balance and say a neutral sentence out loud. Price one product and post it on your sales page. Chase a late payment for 15 minutes. Decline one request that is outside your scope. Those acts are small. They create immediate feedback and slightly discomforting evidence that you can hold money in your life without moral collapse. The weekly accountability can be private but visible. Tell one person your weekly money check summary. It is not about confessing. It is about making your practice trackable. Say, this week I priced X and followed up on invoice Y. No drama. No begging. The person you choose should be stable enough to receive both your honesty and your failure without turning it into a lecture. If you cannot find such a person, hire one. A small paid accountability call works because it removes moral entanglement. Now for the monthly transactional boundary. This is the lever that changes the field around you. It might be no loans to friends without a written agreement, one price increase for a product, a refusal to accept work below X value, a rule to invest a fixed small percentage. The boundary's power comes not from its size, but from its contingency. It shifts your identity in your own eyes. It says, I have rules for money because I intend to steward it. It forces other people to negotiate with a person who has conditions. You will experience two predictable resistances. The first is the moral narrative. You will tell yourself that setting boundaries is greedy, that you are betraying your values. Answer with a test. Does the boundary enable more agency for you and others? If yes, practice it. The second resistance is the adrenaline of immediate relief. When abundance arrives, your nervous system will try to leak it. Anticipate that. Decide ahead of time what you will do with windfalls. Allocate a percentage to practice, a bit to gratitude, a bit to responsibility, a bit to joy. The plan reduces the panic. Let me give you the exact phrasing to use when the old story screams. If I take this, I will become someone else. Pause. Name the story. I am afraid success will change me. Then write the counter. I can hold money and remain the person I choose. Speak it. Then do the micro action you promised in your morning ritual. This is not only about private practices. You must restructure your social code. If you habitually use generosity as a test to prove your morality, you need rules for generosity. One rule I require for people I work with. Never provide a loan without a contract and a repayment schedule. Another rule. One act of generosity per quarter that is not financially risky, and you document the reason. Generosity can heal you or sabotage you depending on its frame. Rules free generosity from unconscious self-punishment. Now stories. They teach faster than theory. Remember Mara from earlier? I worked with her when she kept breaking her own pricing habits. She had a philosophy. Money was a distraction from meaning. That thought led to half-formed offers, sliding prices, and then, predictably, empty seats. She began with a single micro-change. She committed to one price check every Monday. Not a full accounting overhaul. One line on a page. What did I charge last week? What will I charge today? She paired it with a rule. All client offers must include a clear price in the email. For 3 weeks the change did almost nothing visibly. Then someone paid the full price without negotiation. The feeling in her chest was unfamiliar calm competence. That calm allowed her to take the second ritual, hand off a portion of bookkeeping. That handoff cost money and required trust. It also produced something she had been avoiding: invoices being tracked and paid. Her body learned that competence does not annihilate her values. That learning was slow, but durable. Joao's turning point was less elegant. He missed a mortgage payment and felt the body-level alarm of shame. He had rehearsed asking for a raise and failed. The failure could have confirmed his identity as someone who can't hold money. He did something small and absurd. He set a 15-minute window each afternoon to chase unpaid invoices. He made the phone calls. He wrote emails. He stopped giving himself the moral narrative of being bad with money, and instead treated unpaid invoices as tasks. Over months, those small actions accumulated into an ecosystem of competence. When a promotion offered itself later that year, his body did not default to avoidance. The rituals had changed his baseline. These two stories show the recipe. One visible act plus one social condition creates friction enough to rewire expectation. Choose your acts like a surgeon chooses an incision. They must reveal the old wound so it can be cleaned. You will also need contingency for failure. Not everything you try will work. Some rituals will feel theatrical. Some persons you hire will be ineffectual. Failures are data, not verdicts. Keep a small box in your notebook labeled "What Failed." Write one line each time. Review monthly. The review trains you to see patterns rather than moral catastrophes. There is another technical detail most people ignore: temporal layering. You must design a practice that acts on multiple time scales. Daily micro-actions change your nervous system. Weekly accountability trains social momentum. Monthly boundaries alter identity. Annual reviews rewire strategy. When these rhythms align, feedback loops change direction. I want to give you a concrete 30-day experiment you can run now. It is blunt, easy to measure, and public enough to be uncomfortable. Day 1. Complete your 5-minute confrontation of financial clarity. Day 2. Issue one invoice or state one clear price publicly. Day 3. Make or update one boundary. No loans without contract. Day 4. Chase any unpaid invoice for 15 minutes. Day 5. Report one sentence to a chosen accountability person. Repeat the cycle, adjusting small details each week. At the end of 30 days, you will have visible evidence of change. You will have either small wins or clues about stubborn patterns. When I ask people to try this, they balk at the idea of mechanical repetition. They say they want transformation, not ritual. I push back. Transformation is the compound effect of tiny acts. The universe, or reality, does not respond to slogans. It responds to signals. Your ritual changes the signal. You must also recalibrate your language. Replace vague moral vocabulary with neutral verbs. Stop saying "I am bad with money." Start saying "I avoided invoicing 3 times this month." The first is identity. The second is reportable behavior. Identity is sticky. Behavior is fixable. Finally, accept discomfort as a feature, not a flaw. The ritual will produce a new kind of ache. It will be the ache of responsibility. It will feel like losing a beloved lie. Grief will come. That grief is not punishment. It is the body mourning a survival strategy that once worked. Allow it. Name it. Put it in the notebook. If you can carry these rules, rituals, and attitudes forward, you will have built a laboratory of small, reliable acts. Those acts will intercept the next automatic flight reaction. They will make the sabotage harder and the competence easier. In the next section, I will show you what this looks like in the world. I will plot scenes where these rituals begin to change outcomes. You will see how small signals attract different people, different deals, and different consequences. What those scenes look like will either invite you or terrify you, but they will be real. The question is, Are you prepared to do the boring work that makes them appear? I want you to imagine the change not as fireworks, but as the weather shifting. The first days are fog, then a few hours of clear air, then a whole week. The patterns I described in the ritual begin to. This time you breathe, state your price, and propose a time frame. The conversation is imperfect but professional. The other party says yes. You accept. Your body does not flee. The ritual taught your nervous system that you have protocols for the new environment. Windfalls shift differently. When a bonus or inheritance arrives, your old pattern would have invented immediate relief strategies. Spend, give away, or test your moral standing. Now you have a plan. The plan is small and explicit. Allocate 40% to obligations, 30% to investment, 20% to a buffer, 10% to something you enjoy. The distribution itself is an act of boundary. It interrupts the panic. Windfall becomes resource, not test. These are not hypothetical. Mara's second season after that Monday price check illustrates how visible the change can be. She began to post clear prices, to automate receipts, and to demand deposits for workshops. Her first deposit felt scandalous to her old self. It also produced something else time. With deposits, she no longer chased every unpaid participant. She could design the course instead of fretting about logistics. Because she could do the work she intended, her offer improved. Better offers attracted different clients. Different clients sent clearer signals in negotiation. Her social field shifted. Joao's life altered in a parallel way. The 15-minute invoice chase became habit. He scheduled it daily and kept it sacred. In those minutes he learned scripts, learned to be courteous and firm. He learned that chasing an invoice did not make him immoral. It made him reliable. That reliability changed how others treated him. Late payments decreased because people knew he would call. Lower cognitive load meant he could prepare for meetings. He was ready when the promotion came. Being ready meant he accepted more responsibility, and with it came better pay. The world did not give him luck. It rewarded the signal he had sent. Now watch what happens to relationships. A person who feared money often transacted love through money, giving to earn affection, withholding to test value, using money as moral evidence. When you adopt clarity and boundaries, relationships react. Some partners will resist. They are used to your flight pattern. Your new refusal to lend on a handshake might be read as betrayal. Prepare for that. This is not evidence you were wrong. It is evidence of new frequency in the network. Some bonds will realign. Some will break. Expect grief about the relationships that cannot survive your new signal. That grief is not failure. It is the natural consequence of changing. You will also find allies. People who could not get close because your money scripts created chaos will notice the stability and come forward. Different conversations will begin. They will be less dramatic and more transactional. Transactional does not mean cold. It means predictable. Professionally, the landscape shifts too. When you start to price and publish terms, you no longer attract the haggling clients who treat you like optional. You attract clearer partners. Offers that used to be vague now come with clauses. That clarity is a gift. It means negotiation begins from a position where you can say yes or no with a visible standard, rather than a flailing moral narrative. But this is not a one-way street. The old pattern will try to reassert itself. It will do so cleverly. It will send situations that look like moral tests. A friend in crisis asks for a loan. A cause requests you to work for visibility. A job offers meaning but not money. Your old reflex is to fix meaning at the expense of your rules. The new practice requires you to pause and consult your small workbook. What did I plan for this situation? If the situation is outside your rules, you must either adjust the rules consciously or enforce them. Changing the rules to avoid discomfort is relapse. Changing them after clear deliberation is evolution. There are 3 social effects that will appear and then intensify. First, your credibility increases. Small acts of consistency are visible. People notice. It is quiet but accumulative. Second, you will be perceived as less needy. Neediness is contagious. It attracts opportunists and fosters poor terms. Neutral responsibility is magnetic in a cleaner way. Third, friction between you and those who benefited from your inconsistency will increase. Expect that. Those people will pressure you to return to the old equilibrium. Think of it like an ecosystem resisting a new species. You will have to persist. Let me give you a more elaborate scene because nuance matters. Imagine you are buying a house and your partner is the habitual resistor. In the old pattern, you would have deferred inspections, chosen cheaper but riskier fixes, and eventually lost the chance or bought into anxiety. With new rituals, you do three exact things. You schedule a clear inspection date and hold it. You set a budget and refuse to overrun it without written agreement. You state one non-negotiable about how much risk you accept. These acts create negotiation fields, not agonies. The other person may fight them, but the fight happens over terms, not over your anxiety. Terms are negotiable. Anxiety is paralyzing. Another texture, public reputation. When you begin to price and publish, you may anger people who like the sentimental version of you. Some will accuse you of selling out. That attack is a signal that you are moving into a different class of exchange. It will feel mean. It will also be true that some relationships are not compatible with the you who charges. That is part of the cost. Pay it if the cost buys you competence and possibility. Money also changes time. When you start to demand deposits, when you issue invoices, when you build buffers, your calendar frees up. Time is a form of wealth most of these minds misprice. You will notice the freedom first as a small sliver. It grows. You can finally say yes to things that matter because you are not busy remediating avoidable chaos. That is how the future turns from survival to design. Do not romanticize the change. It is not linear. Relapse will happen. A windfall may trigger old squandering. An argument may make you overcompensate. The useful frame is design as much structure as you can to catch relapse early. Have a default response plan for those moments. Call your accountability person, reread the affirmation you wrote in your morning ritual, and commit to one corrective micro-action. The corrective action should be visible and non-negotiable. It reestablishes rhythm. Look at the cumulative effect. Day by day, the world alters the offers it presents to you. It responds to who you are. As your signal becomes steadier, the universe, under whatever name you prefer for reality, delivers different feedback. That feedback is less about luck and more about alignment between who you are and what you request. You will find fewer chaotic windfalls and more consistent flows. You will get better at matching offers to capacity. Your margins may slowly increase. Now a word about scale. The practices that worked for freelance offers also scale to business. A company that formalizes pricing and collections reduces churn. The discipline of visible, boring acts is the same whether your revenue is 10K or 1 million. That is important because the fear of money often claims that the problem is scale. It is not. The problem is signal. You either send a coherent signal or you do not. I want to close this section with two final, practical tools you can adopt to keep the new pattern resilient. The first is the monthly state meeting. Once a month, with your partner, your business partner, or a trusted advisor, spend 30 minutes reading the ledger aloud and asking 3 questions. What went as planned? What did not? What will we change? Keep it strict and short. Make the consequences administrative, not moral. The second tool is the fail file. When something goes wrong, write a 1-paragraph entry describing the event, the belief that caused it, and the corrective step. Review this file quarterly. Failure becomes a curriculum, not a shame list. If you have followed the rituals and accepted the costs, the future will begin to look different. Opportunities will stop serving as triggers for old stories. They will become data you can respond to. Your body will no longer default to evacuation. That is not small. It is the moment the loop begins to unwind. In the next part 1, we'll close this conversation. I will make the thesis blunt again, mirror you back to where you likely sit, and give a simple, impossible to ignore step to take today. It will be practical and tiny, and it will force a new signal. If you are still listening, that step will either be the first act of your new pattern or the beginning of another loop. Which will you choose? This is the place where theory must become blunt and immediate. The map tells you whether you need shame reduction, a ritual anchor, or an accountability tightening. Now the concrete step I demand you take before you finish this video. It is small, visible, and impossible to perform while telling yourself an excuse. Open your banking app. Look at your balance. Breathe for 30 seconds. Do not narrate. Do not moralize. Just breathe. Then, write one line in a notebook, one fear you felt when you looked. Next, write one micro-action you will do in the next 24 hours that contradicts that fear. That is it. One breath, one line, one action. If you do nothing else, I suggest, do that now. If you can, text the sentence and the action to one person who will not judge. Make that a public act. The body will hate it. The world will notice. The ritual's aim is not to fix your finances in one move. It is to change your signal. I will give you 3 short scripts to use when discomfort arrives. Say them aloud and mean them. Script 1, for negotiation anxiety. I can ask for what my work is worth and remain myself. Script 2, for windfall panic. I can allocate this money with intention and still be kind. Script 3, for generosity entrapment. I can help without erasing my boundaries. Repeat these scripts when the old stories surface. They are not magic. They are anchors. Next, build your 30-day public experiment into language you can use. Write this sentence and pin it where you can see it. For 30 days, I will perform one visible financial act per day and report it weekly to one person. That is measurable. It is public. It is embarrassing in the best way. Embarrassment is a form of social friction that produces change when paired with ritual. I must also say this plainly. You will fail. The work is not linear. You will skip days. You will avoid the ledger. When that happens, do not double down on shame. Do the corrective micro step immediately. A corrective micro step is one visible act you promised yourself earlier. If you promised to follow up on invoices and you skipped 5 days, spend 30 minutes now and write the email. If you avoided pricing, set one price and publish it. The point is to produce evidence quickly. Let me mirror you now in a way I hope you will accept. If you are still reading with the old story, if you believe that money is inherently corrupt and that any attempt to manage it will make you morally worse than your fear is doing honest work. It has kept you safe from a particular kind of social pain. But safety in this mode is a fossil. It preserves you in a smaller form. If you want different results, you will need different costs. The new cost is responsibility. The old cost was avoidance. Which cost do you choose? If your inner reply is, I cannot do this alone, you are right. Do not be lonely about it. Find one person and tell them your 30-day sentence. Or hire a small accountability coach for a month. Spend what you can afford to buy external structure. The money spent to build competency is not lost. It is an investment in changing the signal you send. For those who say, my collapse was public and humiliating, I can't recover. Listen, public failure is painful. It also makes learning visible. People who have failed publicly often rebuild faster because their mistakes are documented and therefore teachable. You will rebuild the same way. Public acts, visible accountability, boring rituals. The shame will reduce as competence accumulates. I want to give you 2 closing practices to carry forward. The first is the weekly tree-off. Once a week, for 20 minutes, list 3 things. Invoices outstanding, prices unclear, boundaries violated. For each item, name one specific corrective action you will take in the next 48 hours. Do it on Monday. Make it ritual. The second is the boundary bookmark. Choose one category: friends, lovers, clients, and announce one financial boundary for that category. Make it short and unambiguous. Put it in your notebook. Enforce it. If you are scared of enforcement, rehearse enforcement with your accountability person. Now a small test I give to anyone who claims they value things more than money. I ask them, what are the costs of your posture? Can you itemize them? A missed concert with a dying parent? A stalled business that might have helped hundreds? A broken partnership? List the costs. Then ask if your present posture is worth the cost. That question is not moralistic. It is practical. If you have done the breath and line exercise I asked, you have already started. If not, stop reading and do it now. It will be quick. It will be uncomfortable. It will be honest. That honesty is the beginning of repair. I will finish by giving you permission and a warning. Permission. You do not have to become greedy or cold to manage money. You can steward resources with tenderness. The ritual I gave trains tenderness into competence. Warning. If you refuse to change the signal you send, the world will continue to respond in manners that preserve scarcity. That is not mystical. It is predictable. Finally, a brief commitment for those who stayed until the end. I ask each of you to post one sentence in the comments below. If you are watching this on a platform that supports comments, write city/country and the one action you will take in the next 24 hours. Example, Sao Paulo, Brazil, issue one invoice. That small public act matters. It invites community and accountability. Thank you for listening this far. If you felt seen, share this with one person who needs the same blunt diagnosis. If you felt provoked, good. Let the provocation move you to one visible act. And please subscribe. This channel is new, and every subscription helps us get to 1,000 people who might need this message. I will leave you with a final line to repeat now, 3 times, aloud if you can. I will do one visible financial act today. Say it, then act.